1 year ago, 49 lives were lost here at Pulse.
1 year ago, 49 people were killed while laughing and dancing at what they thought was a safe space, Latin night at a gay nightclub.
1 year ago, 49 people were gunned down and Orlando was left reeling. 1 year later, we sit down with those impacted by the massacre.
Survivors trying to move forward.
Medical responders learning from that night's tragic events.
A mother fighting to ensure what happened to her son doesn't happen to anyone else.
A massive preservation effort and plans to honor those that died here.
A community forever changed.
1 year later, Orlando Sentinel Snapshot remembers the 49 lives lost on June 12, 2016.
Even though he had 32 happy years, I wish it would have been 92 happy years, not 32. But I am grateful that he had 32.
So you've been through some of the yearly milestones that you normally would spend with Christopher. What's it been like?
I let anger take over because I was so incredibly sad. I don't know why the FBI did this. At the 6-month mark, which was right before Christmas, they gave us our personal effects back. So I got Christopher's, his wallet, his clothing, everything he had on him that he died with. And to see then exactly how he got shot 5 times in his torso, in his shirt. And then as he lay on his stomach, he was shot then 4 times from the back while he was either dying or already dead, but the gunman wanted to make sure he was dead. But what makes it even worse is that's one kid. Now, 48 other people were shot and killed. And no one can overpower him because his weapon is too powerful.
You've spoken out on the issue of gun legislation, gun safety and laws. Talk about what you've done and what you want to see happen.
I'm not against guns. I'm a former police officer. I have guns. I love the Second Amendment. The very first thing that I would like to see done is to just not let that weapon, that type of firepower, in the hands of our ordinary population. Even a uniformed cop, a uniformed, armed, trained police officer is outgunned by just an everyday citizen.
So how do you think about him? Do you forgive him, or is that not no?
I am a lifelong Catholic, and I raised Christopher as a lifelong Catholic, and yet I have no compassion to forgive him.
Yeah.
What he did, in my opinion, is unforgivable.
We saw like 28 cop cars pass by, like fly by. So that's when we knew, like, oh my God, something's happening. And it's like close by because you could hear them.
Corrine Medeiros, at the time of the Pulse attack, was a UCF student nurse in training, shadowing a more experienced member of the staff.
So she just had a feeling something was going on, and she stepped out to the ambulance bay. And so she could smell the gunpowder. And eventually it turned into a mass casualty incident, and I didn't know what that was because I'm new.
It was her first night working in triage, and she would quickly find herself as one of the responders tending to the wounded that night.
EMS was coming in, dropping off patients, and people were rapidly getting dropped off.
Going on autopilot, she pushed forward.
Because you're taking in so much, like the magnitude of what's going on and everything that you're seeing. If I saw something just move on, I know that if I stop and think about this, it's gonna affect me too heavily. I'm not gonna be able to go on. It was, I think, after the fact that it hit me harder. I got home, and the first thing I did was call my parents, and they were scared for me, but it helped to talk to them.
In the end, she said the night's challenges have shaped her for the better.
Having it early in my career was a little difficult because I had to adjust to the ER while adjusting to something like that. It showed me that I really am meant for emergency medicine and I still want to do it, but I think it's made me stronger in the end.
First responders, EMS, us as medical examiner staff, that's what our job is, that's what we do. We don't necessarily disassociate, but we kind of see it as the task at hand.
Also thrust to the forefront in the aftermath of the attack was the staff of the Chief Medical Examiner's office.
I go downtown, multiple command centers set up everywhere. I meet the mayor of Orlando, which to his credit, like I'll never forget, the first thing he says to me is, "What can I do for you?"
His request to the mayor was to work towards declaring a state of emergency to free up state funds to help handle the daunting task of transporting and autopsying.
Even if it was kind of unwritten, what we're doing at the time, we knew we had to do our part.
That part would include helping to start the healing process for the families of those who lost their lives.
We didn't want them to be blindsided by seeing their loved ones report in the news. Between myself and the other doctors, we called every family.
And he also made the call that the man responsible for their bloodshed would never be in the same room with those individuals again.
When it came down to it, and they're ready to transport, I just said, keep them separate. I mean, it was just sort of a second nature.
I was shot in both elbows. I was shot in the back, directly in the back, but I was grazed on the butt as well. So it's kind of like a fourth shot because it hurt and it had to heal just as much. So
even when talking about his horrific injuries, Rodney Sumter, who worked at Pulse nightclub as a bartender, says it with a smile.
I mean, I like to keep everything really positive, and I don't really like to dwell on the past a lot. This is the real me. I'm always upbeat. It's not just for show. I mean, I'm just blessed to still be here, and I like to enjoy life.
But it's hard to forget how far he's come since that night.
This right elbow, when I got shot in it, I just remember it kind of dangling, and when I ran out of the club, I kind of held it together, and luckily they were able to save that arm, but I didn't have feeling in the arm for the longest time, and the tricep was the biggest issue.
And after 7 surgeries and hundreds of hours of physical therapy, the unbelievable happened.
To be able to do those push-ups, it was incredible. Again, we've been training really hard in the physical therapy sessions, and it was a proud moment for me and my therapist. I still do it 3 times a week, every week. And if I could, I would do it 2 times a day.
This lifelong dancer is also slowly gaining back his rhythm.
Once you feel the moment, as a dancer, when you feel the music, you feel the music. Yeah, that's just me. And I was a little down at one point when I couldn't move too much and I couldn't play football and catch a football and things of that nature. But as soon as I was able to have that green light to go and do it again, I was able to do it.
During his recovery, the former Jacksonville University wide receiver felt something he never thought he would.
When you're at home alone and everybody's at work and you're kind of recovering and you're just sitting in bed in pain, you kind of get in your thoughts a little bit, and that's the hardest part. It's harder than any injury that I had to deal with.
Now he's dealing with moving on and pursuing his dream of opening a gym and sharing his inspirational story.
Being an inspiration to certain people and being able to tell and share my testimony, it definitely helps other people. Luckily for the successful surgeries that I've had, I can probably work out and get back to where I was. And I do have a few scars, but I'm not afraid to share those scars, and I think that's what has helped me thus far. So.
For years, DJ Infinite has been a staple at most of the LGBTQ bars in town. On this night, he performed at Haven nightclub.
That's what we're there for, is to make you have a great time and enjoy your night.
He was DJing on the patio at Pulse the night of the shooting.
It started off like any other night. Same people, same regulars were coming out, having a good time. Everybody was having a great time on the patio until, it happened after 2 o'clock.
He escaped with no injuries.
All my equipment was all left there, so, I basically ran out of there with no keys, just the clothes on my back, and that was it.
But he's far from unscathed.
If I came in here and jumped on the computer or turned the TV on, or for 3 or 4 weeks, it was, everybody was talking about that. So it was like every time I would hear that, I would just get, it'd bring me down. Before, I would just go to a place I didn't care and just go in and, do what I had to do and, leave. I started noticing, is there security, where the exits are. I don't sleep well at night. It's one of those nights where I'm not sleeping, I have to take a sleeping pill to go to sleep. Sometimes I, kind of have like night terrors. I started doing counseling every week, and now it's down to every 2 or 3 weeks. Some of the employees, we get together, we do functions. We try not to talk about it because it just puts you in a mood. And everybody just kind of goes from being 100% down to like 20. It just kind of brings the mood down.
And as surprising as it may seem, if Pulse were to reopen as a nightclub again.
If and when the time is right, I'll be right back there. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. If it was, next week, I'd be there.
Every item has a story.
Just days after the massacre, the Orange County History Center began collecting items from all the memorials in town.
The items that you're seeing today came from ORMC, DPAC, the memorial in front of the Pulse nightclub itself, and a few items from Lake Eolo.
These are just some. Thousands more are kept safe in a secret storage location.
These items are the reflection of the community, the nation's, the world's response to the tragedy, the outpouring of love and support to Orlando. So it is sort of that little silver lining to a great big black cloud. When you think of history, we all think of history. What do we think of? We think of Abraham Lincoln, we think of World War II, we think of 100 years ago. Well, it's made us rethink what our mission is a bit, and that we have to be a little bit more aggressive as we go out there and pay attention to the everyday.
Local leaders and the community will decide how these items will be displayed.
We're substantially done with collecting, but we're thick in the preservation process, of which these are just a small sampling of what we've worked to preserve. That process will continue to take many months. The items that really evoke a lot of emotion out of me, frankly, are the children's messages. A simple child's message attempting to just capture hope, support, love, whatever the message might have been. I think this collection shows that the community really came together in support of those people who lost someone, in support of the LGBTQ community, the Hispanic community. So I think it really speaks volumes to the strength of Orlando and Central Florida, and how people, as so many have wrote, they won't let hate win.
But there's still a missing piece.
And as we are able to evolve into a digital gallery, which the county should be rolling out sometime in June, we're hoping that some people will go online, identify an item that they left at a memorial site, and give us some more information on it. The more information we can get about these items, the better. And there are so many stories out here, countless stories, we're sure. And we would love so much to have some of those stories, so at some point we can share them with the community.
Meanwhile, the story about what would happen to the Pulse building is slowly unfolding.
What began as a place for fun and joy is now sacred ground.
What would happen to the Pulse building was a topic of conversation just days after the tragedy.
What was once our little corner at Kaylee and Orange is now shared with the world.
After some back and forth with the city of Orlando, owner Barbara Poma decided to keep ownership of the building and develop
an iconic, meaningful national memorial to the victims, the survivors, first responders, and medical professionals.
The onePULSE Foundation was formed to handle this project.
This memorial process is led by a task force whose participants have committed to the journey, which will be long and emotional, and it has already begun.
Right now, they're accepting suggestions from the community on what the final space should look like.
We are all a part of Pulse's future, right here on this property.
The process will be funded by donations.
We will ensure that no one of this generation and the generations to come will ever forget what happened here.
People all over the world turned to religion right after the shooting at Pulse nightclub. Thousands of Christians walked through the doors at Northland Church on the Sunday following the tragedy.
I'm not weeping because I had so many relationships in the LGBTQ community. I'm weeping because I didn't.
I was taken aback by my own ignorance, by my own inaction to establish relationships in that community, realizing now how vulnerable that community really is.
Dr. Joel Hunter, who leads this congregation, said he was asked to pray for the victims of Pulse during this service, but didn't.
Honestly, I didn't know enough to pray. I didn't have close relationships, and so that would have been kind of a guessing prayer.
We need to change our whole mental frame.
Over the past year, he's been working to change his guessing into a blessing, and he's had help.
Several of the people in our, my congregation felt safe to come and say, I'm part of that community, and so let me help you understand. And so a lot has changed.
Northland recently held a discussion about LGBTQ issues in the church with religious leaders from across Central Florida.
This discussion needs to be had, because if your perspective remains like that and you're a follower of Jesus Christ and you're a messenger of this holy faith, you're the reason why this world is divided.
I see it from beginning to end, from Genesis to Revelation, as a book of love, and how God continued to reveal God's love in it.
And despite pushback,
huge pushback. Yeah, painful pushback.
Dr. Hunter has simple advice for worshipers struggling with these complicated issues.
If we are to be mature in our faith, we need to be able to have conversations with people who are different than we are, different politically, different culturally, different racially, different perspective on sexuality.
And after a year of reflection, Dr. Hunter says he's now ready to pray for the community that lost so much in 2016.
And I've heard story after story after story, and I've loved every one of them. And I've loved the people who told them. And so I think I could.
One year ago, when the rest of the world had its eyes on Orlando, I wanted the world to know that we were more than just home to a horrific deadly shooting and more than the Always Sunny theme parks. I still do. So as the nation shifts its eyes again to us, if you look past the grisly headlines and the sunny travel brochures, you will see the real Orlando, one that's more sophisticated, more impoverished, more complex. Yes, we are theme parks, but we are also law schools and museums, Tiffany chapels and hipster neighborhoods. We are Snow White by day and Lady Macbeth by night. We are downtown office workers and hotel housekeepers, budding entrepreneurs and hard-working home builders. We are wealth mixed with poverty, retirees mixed with college students, and third-generation citrus farmers living alongside transplants from exotic places like Puerto Rico, Vietnam, and, well, New Jersey. We are cheap motels in McMansion-filled suburbs, part Park Avenue, part Bithlow Speed World, and still trying to figure out what we want to be when we grow up. We are proud of our tourism roots, but also yearning to be pioneers in medicine and technology. We are welcoming and traffic-choked and sweaty. We are all those wonderfully complicated things. But after the Pulse attack, I can tell you something else we are: resilient. For we witnessed the worst and summoned our best, with blood drives, rallies, donations, and art exhibits. When the rest of the world wondered how a community could possibly respond to such powerfully destructive hate, we said, with overwhelming love. Some of the signs still stand in yards today, in the lawns of people like Seminole County resident Tabitha Boltsy, who said she keeps her sign up to remind her family of the vows they made last June, to love a little harder, laugh a little louder, and live a little kinder. Of course, we wish mightily that the attack on June 12th had never taken place, yet we know we are a stronger community because of it. And that's what I want people to know about Orlando.